Since we have 3 different offices in 3 different countries, Istanbul, London and New York, we have a variation of projects in some very different contexts. We have some projects going on in the United States, mainly in Florida for the moment, in Miami and in some other cities. And we have some projects going on in London, in Reading, mainly residential and the commercial. We have some other cultural projects going on in Turkey, which like museums and the kind of cultural centers. The last 10 years was a bit different than the others because the technology has deeply affected our process of design. So in a way, I can say that the new technology allow us to reduce the gap between the real thing and the design. Because I mean, not always the designer is able to see everything, to control all the details and all the corners. But with the new technologies, now we are much more able to do this. So in a way, it didn't affect how we design, but it did affect deeply the process of our design. I'm kind of second generation architects. Both my parents were architects as well, are architects as well. So in a way, I know how those people were working, let's say 30 years ago. But in a way now the architecture is, I mean, doing architecture is different. This is not a one-man show anymore. So in a way the teamwork is much more important than before now. So in that manner we are always very keen about having lots of collaboration, not with only our colleagues in the office, but our colleagues from outside, from different disciplines as well. Sustainability people, some engineers as well, and some communities. So in a way, now the way of doing architecture is very different than, let's say, 40 years ago. I think that it's a kind of burning situation, burning process for the moment, and it's in that manner it's very naive because it's not commercialized for the moment. Like everything in the system, I'm afraid that it will be commercialized in a very short time. So in a way, open sources are in a very, I mean, are very useful for the disadvantaged countries or disadvantaged context for the moment, and it's a very optimistic thing to think about the future of these things. But in a way, I don't believe that. I'm a bit pessimistic about that, and I don't believe that the system or the big, let's say, the big boys, the big guys will allow people to produce these sources in a wider way. So I mean, in a very short time, in my opinion, it will be commercialized, and then we'll see. Maybe I'm not too much optimistic about that. I still believe the individualist, let's say, aspect of architecture and individual specificities of all contexts. So in a way, I don't believe in an architecture which is learned from some softwares. So I don't know how you can embed the feelings of the architecture with this process. So I'm not sure about the future of these things. But I mean, I'm in a certain age, and then maybe I don't understand those feelings. Maybe it will be a very common thing in the next generations. You can collect everything, but you can't be an architect by collecting everything. I mean, you have to interpret somehow. Interpret like seeing the context, understanding the place, and then making some interpretation about what you learn and what you see. This is important. Users, the end user is very important. Sometimes it's public, sometimes it's a private company or private people. So in a way, you have to be very keen as an architect. You have to be very keen about the needs of everybody, and then you guess sometimes, and then you do some guesses, and then afterwards you see if it's wrong or if it's right. But at that moment, I can say that it's a very deep learning process without doing anything about design, and then doing a broader research about the needs and the facts. So it's important. I believe that material should come with the idea. I mean, you don't choose material. The material appears itself with the idea, and then it tells you that you have to use this material. I'm not talking about the variations of the materials, but sometimes you need something soft and you use timber, and you need a contrast about that, and then you can use concrete with that. But in a way, you have, I mean, in some cases, for example, you choose to have a very brutal thing, or in some cases you choose the vice versa. So the material is coming with the idea, and you're not choosing a material after that you complete a project.